So I've come to the conclusion after this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that this is easily my favorite antagonist group that we focused on over all of the parts. This Hitman group is just amazing, and I think it's because of the personality and the amount of depth we get to understand them and really feel like they are the central cast in a lot of ways, because typically with JoJo, sure, you have certain quirks to these villains that you are like, oh, that's kind of cute and fun, but I honestly feel like the Hitman group is being just as fleshed out as our central group, which is something you don't get to see in an action series such as JoJo that often. But once again, we're just seeing so much creativity behind not only their stands, but their overall behaviors, and the little things that will tick them off similar to our central cast. But I have to say, anytime JoJo goes the route of introducing a stand fight, leaving off on a cliffhanger, but then ending that fight within like the first 5 minutes of next week's episode, there's something about that format that I really enjoy. Of course, I do love 2 episodes, sometimes even 3 episodes fights. Those are fun because you get to see so much creativity and so much just weirdness in a JoJo fight that they always find new ways to refresh that fight. But I like how we finish off Babyface in such a quick fashion that it was just a badass way to start off the episode and then move us along to the next villain and the next stand fight and also the next part of this trip to Venice. I really like that. I mean, I thought last week's fight was incredibly creepy and creative and just overall fun, and ending on that badass cliffhanger of a piranha going through that stand, it was awesome to kick in, and just seeing how Giorno came up with such cool and just original ways to screw over this kind of douchebag stand by putting a bike inside of him and then basically blowing him up. That was absolutely badass, and I was kind of curious, like I actually thought like maybe this stand user would actually be relevant for a couple more episodes because it was just one of his stands. He can keep making more and more because his stand is that computer thing, so he can just find other hosts. But the fact that Giorno left a poisonous snake to just take him out like that was like probably the coolest thing in this episode. I was like, even though everyone feels like they have the upper hand, you truly never know until someone's dead who actually had the trump card all along, because everyone feels like they're invincible. But I like that little ploy, and just seeing how like there's only I think 2 left in this Hitman team. Like, for as powerful as they are, I'm just excited to see where it's going to go, because this episode starts off in such a creepy fashion because the leader of this team, he's a badass, and if this guy's that badass, what is the boss going to look like when we fight him or see him? Like, this guy was putting nails through hands and eyes just to get his results because he's like, I don't care if you think the boss is scary, you're dealing with me right now. There's enough like power in this guy's presence, and just clearly his stand has some pretty insane capabilities, but then you just see the actual people in his party. Obviously this party is much smaller now, but it feels like even though when they are silly like the person we get introduced to in this week's episode, they're still so ridiculously strong that even when they goof off or have these weird quirks, you still feel like they're the most terrifying person you're seeing any given week when you're watching JoJo. The idea of this kind of like Winter Wonderland style stand, that I have to say, I love it. I love how, you know, this is a part where it's not just stands hitting stands all the time. It's, you know, how can we make these creative ways to trap a person, whether it be in a mirror or something like that, or in this case, trapping them inside the car so they can't slow down, and the way the speed works with the stand, it makes them basically freeze to death. That is absolutely ridiculous and so cool. Like, honestly, I feel like that's my motto this part. I'm just like, wow, that's such a cool way to make a stand work, you know, trapping them in a mirror or trapping them in a car, and because of the speed with the stand, it's like negative 100 Celsius out there, it's negative 20 Celsius in here, like, there's no way to escape that, and you're literally seeing body parts be ripped apart. Like, when I saw Mista's hand and he lost his pinky, I was like, holy shit, are we really going there? Like, I mean, you just introduced the stand and he's already lost a body part. Okay, we're definitely in for a ride. Literally, holy hell, this stand was ridiculous, and I love the behavior of this guy because similar to some of our central cast in this part of JoJo, there's like these weird quirks. Like, even before he started fighting, you're seeing him get pissed off. He was kicking his car being like, I can't believe this happened, and he just feels like he has this real genuine behavior and kind of motivation behind him, and he doesn't just feel like the next villain we're fighting. It feels like he's an actual person, and there's actually substance to his character writing, especially like there's a moment just before the episode ends when he gets up and he's kind of like ranting about how the words are being pronounced. Like, that's stuff you typically only get to see with the central cast of JoJo, so I'm glad, like, in the middle of a fight, as weird as it is to think about, he was able to just kind of stand up and kind of get upset about simple things that make him tick, similar to how certain characters are very, like, clean freaks, things like that. It was really fun, but just seeing it get progressively colder and colder, the way David Production went about filtering and kind of stylizing these shots, it honestly made me kind of want to freeze up alongside them. I love how over the course of a couple of minutes, you're seeing it get chillier and chillier from the air to just the way the windows were cracking, and you're seeing characters' faces frozen to the window, and then you have characters kind of contemplating, well, if I stay, I'm gonna die, or I can rip off my face, but I don't really want to rip off my face. Giorno can't do shit, no one can do shit, and the idea of essentially the only thing Giorno could do was picking up the bullets, giving them to Mista, using the gun, and then essentially those bullets transforming, that was really cool. I mean, I was kind of figuring something like that would happen after, you know, seeing what Giorno did at the start of the episode with transforming, you know, a hand into a bike, like something like that was to be expected, but I do like the creativity behind his stand because it allows for so many things to happen in any given fight. But I like how even though he has so many ways to approach a fight, you can introduce someone like on skates who can just basically wipe the floor with two people because they're trapped in a box that essentially is like a freezer to the worst degree. And the idea of just jumping off into the river because that's all they can do, that's going to be pretty fun next week. I'm not sure how long this fight will last, if it will be resolved very quickly like it was in this week's episode for last week's fight, or if it will last the remainder of next episode, but with how cool this stand is and how it honestly feels like an icebox right now, I'm okay if the entire next week is going to be a fight with this guy because his personality's pretty fun and his stand right now is absolutely creative, but really the visuals to this episode were really cool. I especially like how, you know, the boss is giving orders to this team because now we're using Leon's stand to kind of rewind and essentially see what happened. I mean, I'm not surprised that this man killed himself because he was found out. I mean, that's kind of to be expected in gang stories, but it was a little sad to see because I kind of like this guy's personality and what he was doing for the team and just essentially saying like, you know, I'm okay with this. I had a very long and happy life. And then he kills himself after delivering the message. Like, the idea that they're so careful about not leaking information that, you know, the boss is planning out these ways that the only way you would be able to get this message is if you have a certain stand, which only one person in your team does. After that, we're going to kill this guy, make sure he's dead, so he can't leak information. Like, they do so many creative things with how they're getting to the boss. Like, you can definitely tell, like, this is the head man in charge. Like, he takes all the precautions, and he's going to make sure no one other than Trish gets to him, and that's going to be pretty exciting. We got a little glimpse of him in this episode. He's definitely a character to say the least with just the few seconds we got to see. I'm interested to see what he's going to do to this cast and ultimately what Giorno and Bruno will truly do when they do reach the boss and how much of a struggle they'll have. But right now, I don't even think they should be worrying about the boss because we still have two members of the Hitman team alive and they are not to be played around with. I mean, they are pushing these guys to their absolute limits. And, I mean, we're losing fingers, we're losing just body parts, like, this is dangerous. This is the most dangerous and fun I've ever felt in JoJo. Because even when, you know, I'm looking at one of these characters who I really enjoy, I'm like, even though he lost his finger, it kind of looks cool. Like, it's sick to say, but it kind of seems cool with how they're detailing things and how, you know, every time they go a different way to stylize an episode, it truly feels like a new and interesting way to approach JoJo's. It doesn't feel like we're just watching the same JoJo fight with a different coat of paint. It truly feels completely different from that mirror world to this, just all the stands from Babyface to everything. Like, this Hitman group is really allowing not only for the stands to feel creative, but visually, the way they're being portrayed. Of course, you have certain stylized JoJo shots that remain consistent every single episode, but there's so much interesting imagery being used, the way colors, like the blues and whites in this episode in that car, like, it was so cold and just ruthless. I love it, and I love seeing how these characters in the heat of the moment have to discover a way to outplay the other, and how, you know, Giorno will just say out loud, this guy's invincible, and how many times have we thought these characters are invincible from the very early stages of this JoJo part? It's absolutely ridiculous how often they can keep one-upping themselves, but once again, we're one-upping themselves. I don't know if this stand will be able to top, like, something like Grateful Dead for me, but still, it's super cool. Like, literally, I don't have any problems with this stand. I think visually he looks awesome, and, like, I honestly kind of want to feel like all the fights that we've seen so far from this team are kind of equal in their own way because they're doing something interesting, and it doesn't really feel like when we get introduced to a new antagonist from this group, it feels like they're lesser in quality than the past. Like, sure, certain stands are a bit more brutal and a little more unique, but they all feel so cool. I kind of want to just say they're all equal in their own unique way, which I don't get to say in JoJo too often. I am curious, though, for manga readers, what is this fight to you for when you read it in the manga? Was this, like, one of your favorite fights, one of your least favorite fights? Is this a fight that not many people talk about? Or is this a very anticipated fight? Because I have no idea, because I am an anime original, so I'm interested to see, like, if this was an anticipated fight, how it is in terms of the adaptation, because so far, manga readers seem to be adoring this part because, I mean, just look at it, it's so damn beautiful, and it seems like they really are fleshing out things that a lot of people thought they wouldn't flesh out, but because the director loves this part so much, he's adding that extra attention and detail that not a lot of studios and directors will do. And for anime originals, what did you think of, ice skating in a very, very cold box? Did you find it as gripping as myself, or was it a bit of a letdown from past fights up till now? Let me know whatever you're feeling, and be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and also hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.